Good day! Our topic for today is about GUI Event Handling. Focuses on event source, listeners, and handlers. In event-driven programming, a piece of event handling codes is executed when an event was fired in response to a user input. It occurs when a user takes an action on a component, such as clicking a button, hitting the Enter key in a text field, selecting an item from a menu, closing a window, and moving the mouse. They are responded by event listeners and causes a call to a method called an event handler. There are three important players in GUI event handling. We have the event source, the event listener, and the event handler. Let's start with the event source. It is any GUI component that generates the event. For example, button. Say for instance, we'll have a login details. We are going to input for the username and password. By pressing the button OK, it will generate a certain event. Same is true with the button cancel. We have event listener and its corresponding handler. When we say event listener, it monitors and detects the event and then calls an event handler. For the event handling method or the handler method, it is a method that reacts to a specific event. There are three steps of an event handler. First, we'll implement a listener. Use the keyword implements in the class declaration. Say for example, public class, my class. Example, we have inherited the JFrame class, extends JFrame, followed by implements. Example, listener is action listener. After that, we'll register the source with listener. Say for instance, we have the button as our source. Let's have an example name of the button is button OK. So we have here button OK dot add action listener and then the instance of my class. In here, we have used the action listener as its listener. So that is why the method that we're going to use here is the add action listener. After which, we'll implement the methods. So it is declared and fully defined all methods for the interface that you'll implement. So if we're using the action listener, its corresponding handler is public void action performed parameter action event e. And then in its body is the code that reacts to the action. We have here the commonly used selected user action, such as clicking a button. The source object is a JButton and the event type generated is action event. Clicking a checkbox, the source object is a JCheckbox and the event type generated item event or action event, and so on. We have here different lists of events with listeners and handlers. So these are the pairing of the listeners and handlers. For action event, the listener is action listener and the handler, we have void action perform action event e. Same is true with item event, item listener and its handler, item state change, text listener. As to key listener, it has three handlers. So all of these three handlers are required. Same is true with the mouse listener and mouse motion listener. We'll implement these two listener and these 7 handlers. And lastly, we have the list selection listener. So we have here a sample template in building GUI event handling. So we have to import java.awt.event for listeners and handlers. And next, let's have the first step. We'll implement a listener. So we have here implements action listener. Action listener is used because our source is the button press me. which is a JButton component. Second step, register the source with listener. So the source here, button press me dot. So the method used is add action listener since its implemented listener is action listener. And the instance of the class this. And the third step is implementing the method. Action listener, its corresponding handler method. We have public void, action perform, action event, and our reference E. And then, ang magiging function na is once na naklik yung button, the label display name would set for the text hello. So let's have a coding demonstration for this one. As you will notice, it has one text field, one button, and a label. So may label dito, hindi lang nakapag-set ng specified text. So if you will notice, there is a setText here that has enter any word here, and this has been highlighted. Also, for the button enter, the background is black and the foreground is white. So we'll use the layout manager here. Grid layout having 3 rows and 1 column. So let's try to lay out first before we'll have the event handling. Okay, so we'll start with this step. We have to import the needed packages. So we'll import java.awt for layout managers and containers. So we'll use asterisk na lang. And then import javax.swing for JFrame and components such as JButtons, JLabels. Next, we have the class declaration inheriting the JFrame class. So this is public class input to display extends JFrame. Okay, so for the meantime, di muna tayo mag-i-implement ng listener. Mag-layout muna tayo. Okay, next, we'll declare the container and all the panel or components needed in the layout. So, kakailanganin lang naman natin ay container, private container C, example. Then, we'll have the first getText field. We'll name it text input. And then, private JButton. We'll name it button enter. And then, lastly, we have the label. Private JLabel, we'll name it label display. Okay, next, let's have the constructor declaration. And we'll set for the entire layout. So, this is public, same name with the class. We have input to display. Set for the frame such as title. So, doon sa title, we have set title. We'll name it testing GUI. And then the size, maybe we can have it 500 by 250. 500 for the width and 250 for the height. And we'll locate it at center screen. Set location relative to null. Next, we have the get the content pane via get content pane. So C, we're referring to the container. C is equal to get content pane. Okay, next, that's the layout manager to the container. So C dot set layout. We'll try to use grid layout. So new grid layout. We have 3 rows and only 1 column. So 3 by 1. Okay, next, we'll instantiate via new operator and set all the components. So our components, we have text input. So mag-start muna tayo sa text input. Comment it text input. So we'll start. Text input is equal to new getText field. And then, ano pa yung mga characteristics niya? setText. Ang nakalagay doon ay enter any word here. How about for the font? So kung papansinin natin, magkakaparehas yung font style and size. So we'll set for an instance to this font para later on, yan na rin yung gagamitin natin sa button and sa label. Okay, so ilagay na lang natin siya dito. And we'll just call the instance later on. Font F is equal to new font. And then that is Trebuchet MS. And then that is bold. Font.bold. And the size is 34. Okay. So, lagay na lang natin dito sa set font niya. Set font F. Referring to this one. So, yung ginamit natin dito na reference is F. Okay, next. So, na-highlight siya. So, our method here is select all. Text input dot select all. Okay. I think yan na yung sa text input. Now, let's proceed with the button. That is name, button, enter. Okay, we'll declare an instance is equal to new J button. Ang label is enter. And the background color is black. Black yung background color and then the foreground or yung font color is white. So enter. And then button enter dot set background color dot black. And then button enter dot set foreground. Okay, we have color dot white. Then I think that's it for button enter. And lastly, we have the label display. For label display, we'll declare an instance for that. New J label. Kung papansinin nyo, walang nakalagay na any caption. So, as it is, empty. And then, I forgot na dapat magkakaparehas silang font. So, dito, lagyan rin natin ng button enter dot set font F. We'll just use the F here para pare-parehas sila ng font. Same is true here. Label display dot set font F. Okay. So, that's it. Next. We'll add the panel or components into the container. So, in the order they are added. So, we'll use the container C, reference C, dot add. So, we'll start with text input kasi yun yung nauna sa taas. And then, sa gitna, C dot add, we have the button enter. And lastly, we have the label display. Then, for the meantime, let's skip this one. 10, then end of constructor, ito yon. 12, we'll skip for the meantime. And then, next, main method declaration. Declare an instance of the class, so that is input to display. We'll use our reference input is equal to new input to display. Okay, next, sets the class to be visible using our reference input dot set visible, and then we'll terminate the IDE input dot set default close operation jframe dot exit on close. Okay, and then the end of main method and class. So, in order for us na hindi magkaroon ng error, unahin muna natin yung pag-layout. Let's try to debug and run the program kung okay na yung layouting natin. Okay, so yan na yon. Same sila dito. So we are through with the layout. Now let's proceed with the event handling. If we'll try to analyze any input in the text field, for example, I type Java programming here, and if I press the button enter, it will be displayed here, yung word na Java programming. Magkakaroon ng action on the part of the button. So our source is the button. Okay, so let's proceed with the event handling. But before we'll proceed with our first step, we just have to import first java.awt.event. So import java.awt.event. So dito, yung classes ng different listeners and handlers under this package. Next, let's have our first step. We'll implement a listener, will implement a certain interface. So our source is a button. So if we'll try to see again sa ating table, clicking a button, we have action event. And action event, ang desired listener is action listener. We have to implement action listener. Okay, next, step 2. We'll register the source, that is step 10. So, yung source natin is the button, and that is name button enter. Button enter dot add action listener. And then, our reference this, meaning referring to the entire class. So, if this is item listener, our method here is add item listener, and so on. Next step, we have the event handler. So, balik ulit tayo sa table natin. Action listener, ang handler is void action perform, action event, and then a certain object. So, in this example, we use E. We have it, public void action perform action event E. So dito na natin ilalagay yung different actions ng ating GUI program. So let's try to analyze once again. So dito, if I press enter, yung magiging text or ang maisiset na text sa label ay manggagaling sa text field. So we're try to apply setText and getText methods. So I'll repeat, the label here will have setText, and ang maisiset na text ay manggagaling sa text field. So if we'll try to code that one, we have first the label, which is label display, yun yung pangalan ng label natin, dot setText, okay, set. Maisiset na text doon sa label. So, in this parameter, it holds a string value. And that string value will come from the text input. So, we have text input dot get text. So, yan yung code niya. Label set text coming from the text. So, this is get text. So, if we'll try to debug and run our program, okay, enter any word here, for example, Java programming, and then I press enter, ayun, another, hello, enter, okay. So if we'll try to, say for instance, have it in uppercase, so, kung ano yung in-input sa text, i-uppercase ni label. So, dito natin siya ilalagay. The to uppercase. Okay, let's try to run. Hello world. Enter. That's it. Next, we'll try to modify this one. How about if, I'll try to run again. Instead of clicking enter, I will use the enter in my keyboard. So therefore, lalagyan natin ng event yung ating text field. Para kapag press yung enter, no need to click the button enter. Madi-display na yung desired text doon sa label. So, Since same lang naman sila ng functionality ni button, enter, magdagdag na lang tayo dito ng source. So, our source is text input dot add action listener list. Okay, so let's try again. GUI in Java. I'll press enter. Okay, so lalayo ko to yung mouse pointer. I'll just press enter in the keyboard. Okay. How about if kapag yung button ang press ko, it will be converted to uppercase. But if I press the enter from the keyboard, it will convert to lowercase. So mag-iiba na ngayon yung codes natin dito sa event handler. So for uppercase, if we will use the button enter. So in doing that, we have to use the if statement. So we have if E referring to our action event. So if our source, we have the method getSource is equal to button enter. So kung ang ginamit na action is button enter, it will be converted to uppercase. But if our getSource is the text input, okay, yung pag click natin yung enter sa keyboard, it will be converted to lowercase. Okay, let's try to run. We have again Java programming. We'll try to use the button enter. Okay, na-convert siya into uppercase. How about if I have GUI in Java? I just press the enter from the keyboard. Yon. It has been converted to lowercase. So that's it for a simple and basic GUI program applying event handling and using setText and getText methods. Thank you.